Hey, our guest tonight played the receiver position at the highest levels, even in the Super Bowl. He's also a BYU TV football analyst, longtime friend of ours. It's our pleasure to welcome Austin Collie back to the Wise Guys. Austin, good evening.
What's up, fellas?
It's great to see you. We've seen a lot of you. It feels like we see each other now every other day, but it's great to have you back on this show.
I mean, we're practically family at this point.
We kind of are family since I've known your parents and your in-laws since before you were born.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
that is very true.
So we kind of are family, and you and my boys you and Kellen are brothers because you played together. So I would say that the entire Collie family are family to me. Absolutely.
Yeah. We all have a similar skill set across the middle.
Yeah.
Some of us are just not as fast or tall or have the hands.
I used to get to throw it to Austin's dad a bunch, so we played together.
Right. It's 9:30 in the morning in the Philippines on a Tuesday morning. Thanks, Glenn. Good to have you with us on the Wise Guys. Austin, let's kick things off with this one. 10-2 season, share the Big 12 championship. How do you characterize this year?
I mean, overall, Dave, I think it's a success, right? Like, I think, I think about where the outlook was going into the season, right? I think we were unsure what Jake's capability was, what the success was going to look like, especially after coming off of the four starts of the four games that he did play in. Obviously you got to take into account that, back then he probably didn't get a lot of reps, wasn't getting a lot of reps. Keaton was probably taking the majority of them. So that whole offseason gave him some time to adjust and feel a little bit more comfortable in the offense. But I think, had you told me that we were going to be 10-2 at the end of this season, I would have called you a liar, right? Like, I don't think there were a lot of people that had the Cougars undefeated, all the way till 9 wins, with the chance to make it to the Big 12 championship game, leading the league, and then a potential chance of making it to the college football playoff. So I think overall success. Long-winded answer, Dave, but I'm going to go ahead and say overall big success. Something definitely to build on for next year.
Sometimes we get caught up in expectations. We were caught up at the beginning of the year in the expectations they were going to win 4 or 5 games. I don't think any of us thought that, but I thought the goal for all of us in our mind was, can they get bowl eligible, right? Can they get to 6, right?
Yeah.
So then all of a sudden they win 6 or 7 in a row. Now it's like, man, if these guys don't make it to the college football playoff, then what a disappointment this season is. So we get caught up in kind of momentum almost, like you do in a sport. But when we take and we look back at this, and let's say they go win a bowl game, and it's against Clemson, Miami, Colorado, something like that. They win a bowl game and they finish in the top 15 or 11-2. In that scenario, where would you place this team all time at BYU? Is this one of the best teams in history at 11-2 with the schedule they played?
I mean, I think so, for sure. I think you got to put them in the conversation, right? Like, that's what Cougar fans need to understand. Like, I mean, we're playing in a Power 4 conference. Now, granted, you will get some people saying that the Big 12 isn't necessarily the toughest conference out of those 4, but it is definitely tough. Like, you're getting a lot of B teams across the board, and I think one thing that we are certain of is that on any given Saturday, any one of those teams could put it all together and have a caliber type of night, right? But there's definitely talent across the board. Size-wise is big. I mean, playing in a conference like this, I can't remember the last time BYU, was facing this type of competition week in and week out, right? And I think going 9-0 in and of itself in a conference like the Big 12 is, I mean, man, that is a feat. I mean, going undefeated, you take into consideration injuries, you take into consideration, maybe lack of depth, right? That is a feat in and of itself, and that takes a special team and a special coaching staff to kind of put that together. So I definitely think that they're up there in the conversation. Would I put them ahead of maybe the 2008 team? I don't know. Blaine.
They did go to Salt Lake and beat the Utes as part of this phenomenal run.
They did do that.
So they got that going for them.
Which we did not do. Okay.
Yeah. Well, I was part of a 13-0 team, but I think back on that season, and we played a couple of A teams. If we're going to use your A, B, C, we played a couple of Bs and we played a lot of Cs. We're just like, we could have just showed up and it didn't really matter what we did and we could win those games. And so when I look at it in its entirety and I think about the degree of difficulty, I guess, the degree of difficulty is a lot higher than what we faced. And so I got to give him a lot of credit, for doing that. It's hard to know where we rank them because they're different times with different athletes and different level of competition. But they're very, very good. They should be in the conversation.
Credit to Kalani and the coaching staff as well, right? But majority of it goes to Kalani. You're talking about an entirely different landscape as well, right? Like BYU's not paying players like their opponents are paying players, right? So that in and of itself, you're doing it with with less resources, maybe from a smaller pond that you're pulling from in terms of the talent pool. Let alone, the honor code and all that stuff, that's always been the case, but even more so now where, you're getting, everyone else is getting $100. You're getting maybe, a tenth of that. Right. To be able to attract talent and bring talent in. And hopefully that changes this next year with everything that's put in place. But to do that, man, you got to have buy-in from your team, and you got to have a special coach and a special coaching staff to kind of pull that together.
Trevor Matich on Sports Nation this morning said, I think this should be considered as one of the greatest seasons in BYU history. So he's right along.
Yeah, he's just talking about the things, talking about the things that we're talking about. Yeah. All those things that Austin's just described, or make it special. Yeah. It
has been a fun one. Give us 2 or 3 of your favorite moments from this season, and maybe 2 of the 3 of what you'd consider disappointments. But let's start with the good stuff.
Yeah, I think I think the Wyoming game, I look back and I kind of think of, where maybe I was convinced that, okay, this team maybe has it, right, and how they responded after that SMU game, that they were on the brink of losing. And now looking back, in retrospect, how good of an SMU team that was. The fact that they were able to bounce back from that close win, and then you could just tell there's a different sense of urgency, I think, in the entire team, especially offensively. I think guys were making plays that I think that was really right when Chase, you could kind of see his identity kind of unfold of just how clutch he was in some of those big catching moments. I remember the one where it was kind of a throwback across the field, and it's probably the toughest catch he made all year, right? And if you're not a receiver, you may not appreciate it as much, but it's kind of over the head. It was like wonderful, but it was one of the best balls Jake probably threw as well. But I remember that catch, and that was kind of a defining factor to me that, okay, Jake, coming out of that SMU game, there were a lot of critics. There were a lot of people saying, hey, maybe we go with Gary. And then that was kind of like a stick it to him type of game for Jake, in my eyes. So that was one. And then obviously, beating Utah. I don't think people really know as a player how tough it is to go play up in Rice Eccles. That's probably was one of the toughest places I've ever had to play. Just the atmosphere, you could cut the animosity with a knife, right? That you were feeling, and that's what makes it college football. But I think winning there, you knew that was kind of a magical moment, right? And then I think Oklahoma State, right? Darius catching that ball and running it in, even if it was maybe a broken play. You just knew those are the types of things that you need to have happen in a special season. And I think you've said that too before, Dave. Special seasons take special moments, right? And those were certainly those kind of special, stars have to align for those things to happen.
All right. On the downside, a couple of things where you go, that was a game changer. I can think of a couple.
Immediately, Kansas game, right?
Yeah.
Kansas game was a defining. That was an easy winnable game for us. And I don't think, offensively, we just weren't great. We weren't great in the red zone. Kind of went back to the old ways where we thought we were going to, establish a run and then plans in incorporating the pass after that, based off of what we were getting at the run. So I think the Kansas game, let's see. There weren't a lot of, the fades to the end zones. Those were kind of like, when the offense was bad, that was kind of like, in a nutshell, like, this is just how bad, we can be, right?
Yes.
Poor throw, poor play call. And those were the glimpses of like, okay, what would keep us from having an undefeated season, and ultimately did. And I think that, the fumble or the punt, the pooch punt as well. I think those were two defining, just as those other Oklahoma State Darius Lasser, the big catches by Chase, the punt return by Parker Kingston, where you're just like, oh wow, we really have some here. We have a special team. This is going to be a special season. You also had those moments too, Dave, where it's just like, maybe it's not as special as we think it's going to be.
You know what?
Right?
Nixon and I were standing next to each other on that quarterback pooch punt, Austin, and the ball hit the guy in the head, and Nixon turns to me and goes, that did not just happen. And he's like, let's think about the odds of that happening. We start going, that's got to be 1 in 100,000. Like, no, that's like more like 1 in a million. Like, he had to be in like a 4-inch window to hit him on the head and get by.
Yeah.
And we're like, man, it's not looking good. And then Belo goes, we're not winning this game. There's no way that just happened and we're winning this game. That fate is against us in this game.
And that was early in the third quarter, and then we didn't win.
If I'm thinking the worst memory of the season for me, it has to be the pooch punt that hit our guy in the head, which is crazy because it turned the ball game around.
And what made it more painful is you got Jacob Robinson diving on the ball just to secure it.
Let it squirt out.
And it squirts out. I mean, how improbable was that? That's our sure-handed guy.
Yeah. I was just going to say, Jacob is as athletic as they come, right? Like, I mean, if there's a ball on the ground loose, 9 out of 10 times he has no problem, recovering that, falling on it, scooping it up, whatever. And then on that one, it looked like it had drenched in just oil, right? Just slippery as all get out. But I'm still convinced that when they put that pooch punt in, there was a part of the discussion of, hey, like, this kid's back could turn, and you find out where that ball's headed, and you take him into it. I would not put it past the team. Like, obviously, very low probable chance of it actually hitting him, but like, I'm very convinced that they had that as a possible, slim margin that this could happen if he turns his back and runs.
And then the next one I think about is, because even with that, even if they tried to plan that, the fact that the offensive player on the punt team was between the punter and the defender. Like, it had to clear the player for Kansas and hit BYU's player. I was like, that's impossible. Yeah. Then the other one is BYU practices. Now we're going to fast forward. BYU practices, hey, if they squib kick it, you got to jump out of the way and don't let it hit you, right? And then you have the one 2 weeks ago where the squib takes his first bounce, and on the second bounce, it's almost like a bad hop at shortstop, turns left and goes right into Talon Offrey, and he can't get out of the way. Yeah. I'm like, are you kidding me? 2 weeks in a row? What in the world is going on right now?
Yeah. And then it bounces right to where the Sun Devils are, and it's
like, all this great karma that Austin described with all these unbelievable plays where you're going, okay, this is a special season, and then 2 weeks in a row, nothing special, and then last week again, they kind of came back and made the plays that they needed to make to win a game.
Former BYU and NFL receiver Austin Collie's on the Wise Guys tonight, presented by Brady Plus and distributed by the Deseret News. All right, here's a weighty question for you, Austin. Which side of the ball surprised you the most? Defense, number 1 in the Big 12 in total defense, number 2 in scoring defense, number 2 in passing defense. That's through 12 games. Offense, Retzlaff, 20 touchdowns, 10 picks. BYU averaged 4.6 yards rushing, up from 3.5, which was a big problem in 2023. Or special teams. You got one of the best kickers in the country. Hasn't missed in 13 straight field goals, 3 kickoff returns for touchdowns, punt return for a touchdown, a fake field goal that worked, and a fake punt. So which of those 3 phases of the football surprised you the most?
Oh no, that's a tough one, Dave. I would say I'm not surprised by the special teams play, right? Like, I Coach Papinga, I play with Kelly. I know how detail oriented he is. I know he would have his guys ready, right? Like, he's an influential, inspiring coach, and I know the details matter to him. I don't know. In my mind, I immediately want to say the defense, and only because BYU has never been known to have a back end 4 like we had, like a true, hey, we can rely on this on the defensive shell, on the DBs to really hold down the fort so that we can get home on the front line, and that we can play as aggressive as we can in the box. I can't. I know in the past we've had a player or two, but in totality, right, from the corners to the nickel to the safeties, man, I think as a whole, collectively, that was probably one of the better groups that BYU's ever had, right? I mean, obviously you think about the Gennaros, et cetera, but like in terms of just physical, being able to cover, because I mean, essentially that's on the back end, that's what you're supposed to be doing, right? Buying time so that you can allow the guys in the box, especially the front four, to get home and make a play. And when the ball does come to you, I mean, we didn't hear their names a lot on a lot of big plays, right? There might have been some miscues. Like I know there's one at Arizona State where I think they were running a cloud and the safety didn't get over, that they burned us on. But ultimately, man, like we didn't hear a lot about them, and that just goes to show, how solid they were. And then the defensive, I think with Taggart and with Jack, kind of unknowns, and then the loss of Ben, not knowing what was going to happen there. I mean, the defense was just so solid, man. And the jump that they made from last year to this year, I mean, you knew that there was going to be some improvement, but the improvement that was made was drastic, right? We're talking about a whole new look, a whole new team in the way that they played. And honestly, I mean, they were kind of the fire for the team, just from all the team leaders, from Batty to, like I mentioned, Taggart and Jack Kelly. I mean, those guys are just, I mean, they're players, right? I think there's a lot of NFL talent on that side of the ball.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with Austin on all of that. It was phenomenal. And one you didn't even mention, BYU led the nation in interceptions.
Yeah.
When's the last time that's happened? I mean, that verified, Austin saying that back end was incredible. They led the nation in interceptions, which is crazy. So, yeah, I'm with you all the way. Now that you look at that and you think about what's coming back, a lot of what you just mentioned is coming back. Some's going on, some to the NFL and some on to other careers. But what do you think BYU's priorities should be in this offseason? What do they have to address with recruiting in the transfer portal to have a repeat performance next year?
Well, I think you do everything in your power to pay Jay Hill, right?
Yeah.
To get him to stay, right? I think you have some leverage given, the health events that he had this year. I can't imagine, taking a head coaching gig, relieves stress.
Yeah, no way, right? Not a rebuild.
No. So, I think you got to pay the guy. He's the cornerstone of the team right now. He's very good at what he does. You also have, it allows Kalani also to do some other things as well, right? As a head coach, and it kind of maybe takes a little bit off of Kalani's plate, behind the scenes. If that would be kind of safe to assume, just given his pedigree. And then, I think offensively. I think Jay Hill's as good of a coach as there is defensively, to where he can do really well with who he has, right? Mm-hmm. I don't think the key players are necessary as it would be on the offensive side, and that's not a shot at A-Rod. I'm just saying there's from the whole scope of it, getting to play as a unit comes more into play on the defensive side of the ball than the offensive side of the ball, right? And so I think Jay Hill is very, very good at that. I think a really good coach shines in that role. I think on the offensive side, man, you got to go get some more playmakers, right? Mm-hmm. You got to develop the playmakers that you have. You got to pay the playmakers that you have currently. Maybe the ones that are debating on staying or coming back, right? The ones that are probably the most valuable. And then in my mind, you gotta take a look at your playbook and you gotta say, okay, listen, here's how we're gonna get these guys the ball, and then really hammer on the quick game stuff, on the intermediate stuff. I would really take a hard look at what's in the playbook and maybe do a little bit of a renovation, right, of what can be offered, and really find out what your identity is going to be on offense, and not just assume, hey, we're going to put whoever back there, running back, and they're going to get the job done, and then that's going to open up the pass game. Because I think, I think the running backs, to be honest with you, what'd you say, Dave, that the average yards per rush was this year?
4.6.
Yeah, 4.6.
Okay. I do think A-Rod is extremely creative in the run game. Like he can get very, very creative in the run game. And I think some of those backs left yards on the table.
Yeah.
Right. Like we discussed that before, Blaine. I think I like Sione Moa a lot. You know, I don't know how he is in the classroom in terms of comprehending, et cetera. Like I don't know anything about that, but just from a sheer raw talent, the way that I see him run the ball compared to the other guys, the kid runs with a purpose. He runs with no hesitation. He runs with no fear. He's quick to the corner. And that's, you know, that's kind of what you need, right? Like you need somebody that can run downhill. That's going to get you, he's going to finish and he's going to get you another 2 to 3 yards, which is what I think we were kind of missing this year.
Yeah, we want him. Can we use the word? We'd like the running backs to run with a little more violence. Is that an okay word?
Yeah.
A little more hate.
Yeah. A little more like, okay, defensive back, you're going to tackle me, you will pay. And you won't want to do it the next time I turn upfield on you, right?
Yeah. And it is hard. I mean, with LJ, like I look at LJ, he's young. He is a big body. He can probably do some things that the other guys can't. But you also got to keep in mind, man, when you've gone how many times has he been injured?
Yeah.
Right? How many injuries has he had? When you had that many injuries that close together, man, I mean, you tend to get a little bit of, you know, you're not as aggressive, right? Because one, you want to stay in the game. And if you feel like you're fragile, trust me, if anybody knows about being fragile, it's me, right? Like that it definitely took a toll on me, right? Like I started protecting my head a lot more later on in my career and not being as violent, not being as, contact seeking because I was so worried about getting injured again.
Yeah, that does play in the back of your mind. I want to ask you another, like you mentioned special teams, and I'm gonna throw out a question that Dave and I haven't even talking about, but while we got you on, because you have a great grasp of this, you mentioned Kelly Poppinga. We all love Kelly. His attention to detail is fantastic. He's got ties to Utah State. Why is nobody talking about Kelly Poppinga as a head coaching candidate for Utah State job? Because I think he would be a tremendous fit up there. He understands the state. He's a phenomenal recruiter. His attention to detail, his energy level, all of those things would seem to me that at some point, if Jay Hill says no thanks, which I think he will, because Jay Hill went in with a list of things that he needed to have, that he thought he needed to in addition to what they had to pay him, it was like, hey, I need these resources. I need NIL resources. I need the school to put up this. And if they're not going to do all of that, I'm not going to go up there and waste my time. I just don't think the things that Jay feels he needs there, that Utah State has the resources to give him. That's why I think Jay's staying, right? And I also happen to know that Jay and Sarah love it down here and his health things. And he loves the kids he's working with, and he loves working with Kalani. And I think one more year like this, Jay's a P4 head coach candidate. I really do.
Yeah.
If he goes back-to-back years as the number one total defense in the Big 12, he becomes a P4 candidate to me, head job. Which doesn't pay $2 million, it pays $6 million, right?
Yeah. No, I knowing what I know about Jay, just having been in the offices and seeing the energy that he brings and the way he commands, like. I would say he is that right now, right? Now, obviously, in terms of like pedigree, and what kind of gets you those jobs, I mean, obviously, you'd probably need another year. But like as of right now, like Jay Hill is going to be as big as he wants to be, man. Like
right.
That guy's a dog.
So what about Kelly Poppinga, who's been a coordinator at Virginia in the ACC? He's the special teams coordinator at BYU. He's great success this year. Special teams has been off the charts. He's got ties to Utah State. I haven't heard anybody mention that name. And today I was thinking about him, like, why not Kelly Poppinga if you don't get a Jay Hill?
So, I mean, that's a great question, right? Like, I think Kelly's another one of those guys, man, that is just Kelly's got a little Bronco in him, right? Like, he's got a perfect little balance to him. And, he's a player's coach, but at the same time, man, he'll get players to kind of walk the line and buy in. I don't know. A part of me thinks, okay, does Kelly really want that, right? Like,
and that may be the limiting factor.
A great family man,
yeah,
right?
Yeah. So he may not want it, but if I'm Utah State, I'm coming after him. That's for sure.
You've made the live stream been out of shape, Blaine, because they think you're sending
they're mad at me. They're mad at me because
town.
they're like, don't give the live stream. Austin,
give them ideas.
Like, don't give Utah State ideas about our guys. I'm just telling the guys that deserve it, right?
Calm down.
Yeah, it's okay, chat.
BYU TV football analyst Austin Collie's on the Wise Guys live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and wiseguys.com. Give you some perspective here leading into this next question. During Austin's last year at BYU in 2008 as a junior, he caught 106 passes for 1,538 yards and 15 touchdowns. Chase Roberts is the most productive BYU receiver this season with 51 catches for 843 yards and 4 touchdowns. Now, that's the best of what we got. And you train Chase, and so I know you're close to him. So that's why I'm going to ask you this question that goes straight to your heart on this. But he walked with the seniors after the game. He's got a year of eligibility left. You left school early, but you knew you were going to get drafted. That's not the case for some of these guys who are thinking about it. He's a little older, returned missionary, and all that stuff. So what would you do if you were Chase?
That's a great question. I will point out, and I don't think I did not know this until talking with him, but Chase is going to be 24 next year.
Yeah, that's what I've been telling people. He's older than you think, right?
Well, no. He's super young. I thought Chase was like 20, going to be 25.
Oh, you thought he was older?
Yeah, I mean, this would be his 5th year, right? I mean, a 5th-year senior going on a mission that tracks to being. Like, if I followed that same regimen, I would have been 25 years old.
Yeah.
Right?
And
I came out when I was 24.
Receivers every place else with his same tenure are 22. So he's only 2 years older. That's not crazy is what you're saying.
No. And if you look at, if you look at the timing of it, like one of my guys last year too was Devon Bailey, right? Like Devon Bailey from Utah. Devon was, second team all Pac-12. Ran really well at the combine, got invited to the combine, ran a low 4.4 at the combine, did extremely well in the catching. The kid is as skillful as he gets. The only reason why he didn't get picked up or drafted was because, and I think he may have gotten drafted like in the 7th or something, but the reason why he didn't get drafted in the mid rounds, he was a mid round guy for sure. He's 6'4", 215 pounds, runs a low 4.4, and is technically one of the better receivers that I've seen at the college level in quite some time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And he's got that dog in him. He was 26, right?
Oh,
so
yeah.
that killed him, right? Because they track it in terms of where that second contract's going to line up at what age, because they know when that prime's going to be. Now, Chase isn't going to face that same thing if he were to come back for another year, right? And as a BYU fan, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. As a BYU fan, man, I would tell Chase, come back, no doubt, right? Like, you have another quarterback, or you have a quarterback that you have a developed rapport with. Darius is gone, who was, taking up the majority of the snaps, the majority of the looks after you. So that's potentially going to be more production. But then I look back and I think to myself, okay, well, and that's being somebody selfish as a BYU fan, and me just liking Chase. I want him, around as much as possible. Now, as somebody putting myself in Chase's shoes, or if I was in Chase's shoes, I'd be weighing the following options. One, I'm probably the most valuable player on that team, the second most valuable player on that team. Okay. Nowadays, this is a business. BYU's making business decisions. I've got to make business decisions, right? And so am I going to get paid because maybe the NFL isn't a 100% guaranteed, and now is my time to cash in on my talents and my ability? And I'll tell Chase, hey, starting your life off with $400,000 in your pocket as opposed to zero is you're getting a light years head start compared to everybody else, right?
Yeah.
So hopefully BYU pays him what he's worth, or pays him what he should have to be able to stay and play for another year, because I don't think coming back another year would hurt him, right? And then the other thing is, like, okay, you're going to tell him that he's going to get more looks, get more balls, have more production, but is he though? Right? Like, why wasn't he? And I keep racking my brain as to why they were continuing to die. And don't get me wrong, Keelan and Darius, great players. You know, Darius came up clutch this year, but they're not Chase, right?
Right.
And if I'm Chase, I'm wondering, I gave you I think everybody in the world that watched these games and was a fan knew, even if you didn't know football, you knew that the offense clicked differently when Chase was getting involved. You saw it, right? There's a different energy, different momentum. And you would have to think the BYU coaches know that. The offensive coaches know that. So why are we continuing to dial up plays for Darius and not get me Chase Roberts the ball earlier? Like, so is it true that you're going to get me more touches and more production next season? I gave you every reason to give me more touches this season, right? And it didn't happen.
Yeah, fair question.
So are you like, in a nutshell, if they came back to Chase and say, listen, Darius is going, we got these young guys coming up, but instead of targeting you 6 or 7 times a game, we're going to target you 12, 13 times a game. You're going to catch 80 plus balls next year because you're going to be an integral part. Jake's going to be more experienced. And oh, by the way, here's a raise in your NIL significantly. If then you would say, yeah, dude, come back, right?
Oh, 1,000%.
And maybe that's what needs to happen. There you go. Austin just gave you the formula, BYU, to get your second most important player on the offense back, because we all know, even though I played that position and I'm a little biased, that the most important position of any position in any team sport is quarterback on offense, right?
Well, yeah, well, that's why Austin said second most important.
I know what Austin was talking about, because you got to have the guy that can sling it out there and get it to him. I think that Jake will make a monster step forward, and you and I talk all the time, Austin, when we're on set together and when we're watching games together, about BYU needs to get him 10 to 12 easier throws a game, which can go to guys like Chase, like check down, slants, option routes, like things that they can throw underneath on early downs to keep him ahead of the chains. Yeah, I'd like to see him throw 10 more balls a game next year.
So my junior year, after my sophomore year, we were rotating, right? Like I was rotating with Matt Allen, and I totally got that because I had just come out. Last year I was on my mission, right? I needed time to kind of get back into shape. Matt Allen was a great player. He was a fifth-year senior, captain on the team, and I was like, that's perfectly, like, we're going to rotate every 2 plays, kind of get me back into this thing. That's perfectly fine. After that, I made sure to go up to Coach Anai and Coach Doman's office and say, hey, I'm not rotating anymore. Like, I'm staying on the field. I'll come out when I'm gassed, but, like, I'm staying out on the field, and we got to find ways. Like, I know how integral and a big part of this offense I am. We got to find ways to, like, get me the ball. So whether that's, taking Wildcat, which is what I did some plays, which is handing me the ball off on fly sweeps, or running the option with Max and I, moving me in and out of the slot, right? Because they didn't do that before. Like, I was just strictly on the right side, on the outside. So, being able to collaborate like that with Coach and I, and, kind of setting a game plan forward is like, hey, here's how we're going to get you more balls. We're going to expand your role and put you in different positions. They can do that, right? I mean, there's so many different formations that A-Rod has where he can highlight Chase. It's just going to require, and highlight Chase in the areas that Chase is going to be more effective in, right? Like, he's great spatial awareness, and I know I've said this, I'm a broken record, but great spatial awareness, great route runner, right? So anytime you have that, like that 5 to 15 yard range, man, that is where he lives. So designing up plays and pass concepts that kind of work and highlight those areas and making sure that he's in those areas is going to help.
And you think about Andy Reid with Travis Kelce, right? And it wasn't just Trout, but back when they had Hill, I'm thinking that, is that right? Yeah. Andy would go into a game and go, gosh, Travis is so dominant. I got to figure out a way to get him the ball 12 times a game. Like he needed to have 12 catches, 10 to 12 catches. And so we're going to design plays. And then he looks at the defense and says, oh, they're going to try to bracket him here and bracket him there. They'll double him inside out there. So what we're going to do is I'm going to move him around. I'll motion him away from that so they can't bracket him. I'll put him out at wide receiver a couple times so they can't bracket him. I'm going to put him in the backfield and shift him out of there so they can't bracket him. And so Andy literally would take the time during a week to go, he's a big-time playmaker. He has to have the ball in his hands. We're going to design an offense around figuring out how to get him singled up and get him the ball. You can do that, right? They could do that with Chase going into next year if he was willing to come back.
1,000%. 1,000%.
Let's hope they do, because I don't know of another player more valuable to their team, not named the quarterback, in the Big 12. I mean, there are a lot of great receivers, but Chase is the best that BYU has. If you have a chance to get him back, it's a business decision. I want to stay in business, and so
pay the guy.
We'll see what happens with that one. Couple more questions for Austin Collie before he reveals his top 5 Christmas movies of all time.
Yes.
Looking forward to that. Pop-Tarts Bowl in Orlando, Alamo Bowl in San Antonio. Both are December 28th. Pop-Tarts in the day on ABC. Alamo's at night.
Yeah. And opponents, we got to give them opponents.
ESPN.
Pop-Tarts is either probably Clemson, maybe Miami. Alamo is Colorado, maybe Washington State. Boo. Who cares about that? I don't want to play that.
Which one do you want?
So the Alamo Bowl would be Colorado, right? Most likely.
Most likely.
Yeah. Backup would be Washington State.
That's what we're hearing.
Which none of us want, right?
Yeah, don't really want that one.
I don't want either one of those.
You don't want Colorado or Washington?
I want the Clemson. I want the give me the bigger ACC school. Who are the other ones that
Miami, Clemson, or they're talking about Miami or Clemson in the Pop-Tarts.
Yeah, that's cool. That's no question. Give me the bigger ACC school. Like, I want Miami.
You rather go to Orlando?
I want Miami
in the
too.
day.
Yeah, I want Miami too.
Orlando in the day versus Texas at night.
Yeah, but to me, there's a key missing factor with the Cougars at night, and that is LaVell Edwards Stadium.
Yeah,
and it'd be indoors in the Dome in the Alamo Bowl, outdoors in the Pop-Tarts. Plus, at the Pop-Tarts, don't they put a mascot into the Pop-Tart toaster and it comes out the Pop-Tart on the other end? Something they do.
We're going to be educated in Pop-Tarts if it comes to that. Alamo Bowl pays out 8.25. Pop-Tarts is at 6.
Yeah, it's less of a payout. That's the only problem.
So much more than what they used to get. All right, here's another one. Taysom Hill now is out for the season with a torn ACL, which was devastating. It was a brutal hit that he suffered against the Rams yesterday. Has there ever been another player that's done more at that professional level, not won more Super Bowls or things like, just done more than Taysom Hill?
No, in my book, he's a Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
Right. He's redefined a position in the NFL, and I've said this before, and I'll continue to say Taysom's probably one of the best football players I've ever seen. And that's saying, I mean, I've been around a lot of great football players, but just from a guy who is just from a football knowledge standpoint is off the charts, from his ability to adapt and play different roles and positions, man. I mean, what he's done and what he is currently doing and will currently do is unprecedented. I mean, no one's ever done it. No one's ever done it. Like, you think of what's our guy's name? Travis Hunter, right? Like, what he's doing is unprecedented. The amount of snaps he's taking at this level of competition, like, I don't think Taysom gets talked about enough. Taysom gets talked about. His name gets thrown around a lot. I don't think it's enough, though.
What do you think about a 35-year-old with an ACL and there's a few other problems in that injury with that knee? Can he come back and get back to the elite level that can play all those things in the NFL, or is this a turning point for him?
I don't know. I would say probably not. But Taysom, the guy's a freak. And there's just some guys that are just cut from a different cloth, man, when it comes to that stuff. So, knowing Taysom, knowing his work ethic, knowing his mindset, man, I think he comes back. He may lose 5%, but still, I'll take a Taysom at 95% playing the role that he does over anybody.
Yeah, that's a great point. Like, he literally at 95 is better than anybody else in the league at that. That's true.
Yeah, it's just such a bummer. And he was playing so well. Now he had a coach that was like, hey, I need you in all these positions. I'm going to let you throw, catch, run, tackle, block. And the last few weeks have been among his most productive and then comes down with that injury.
Hey, by the way, Linda Murray chimes in on the chat and she says, yes, they do. She talked about the mascot on the toaster thing in the pop. She was, yes, they do. It's pretty cool to see that Pop-Tart come out on the other end. So there you go.
Yeah, something to look forward to. All right, here we go. 5 questions is presented by Strategy Square, delivering connection, clarity, and confidence in business and marketing strategies. Owned and operated by a BYU alum who's helping the wise guys conquer the world. You can reach Chantal at strategysquare.co. And they're not necessarily 5 questions. They are 5 revelations.
Yes. And I think Austin, you should start with your 5th favorite and go down to your first favorite so that we reveal the top at the
5
end.
5 favorite Christmas movies.
Number 5.
Number 5, I'm going to go with A Christmas Story.
Oh, so you're talking about the leg lamp, that one.
Yes.
You'll shoot your eye out. Sure. Yeah.
Boy, that's number 5.
I love man.
Already number 5.
Wow, 5's an
Story
all-timer.
Thinks it's getting jobbed. It should be higher in the college football playoff already.
Yeah, okay.
Listen, my list might be a little unorthodox. Okay.
All right. Okay.
Yeah, I like one of my favorite lines in that is fragile. Must be from Italy.
I thought you, Austin, when you were talking about you being fragile, I thought you were going to say fragile.
Yeah. Must be from Italy. So, okay, number 4.
Okay, number 4. Oof, this might lose me some points. Love Actually.
Because Love Actually, it happens on Christmas, right?
Yeah.
Love Actually. I don't even know if I've seen that.
So
I'm gonna have to see
come on,
it.
Dave.
Come on, you know
I'm
that
gonna have to see
you
it.
know, and I love your wife, but she made you watch this, Austin. She made you watch this, and then you decided it was good, and you decided it was good.
Question.
Okay.
And honestly, guys, it is good. If
In at number 4?
If you want to watch, a show with your wife, it's a good one.
Okay.
It sucks you in, and you might even cry, right?
I can't wait to hear
I
number
don't
3.
know. That might be pushing it.
Okay.
Can't wait to hear number 3 after that.
Okay. The next one is going to be I got it right here. Where are you? It is going to be The Elf.
Oh yeah, Elf.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good one.
That's a great one.
It's got a great soundtrack.
My nieces and nephews were in New York City last week to watch Libby, and they went around and did an Elf tour where they went all the places that Elf happened in New York.
Yeah.
So
that's fun.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay.
Number 2.
Okay, number 2. We are going with 4 Christmases.
4 Christmases. You're coming
That's
up with
funny.
some, yeah.
There's some funny scenes in that. Vince
Yeah,
Vaughn.
no,
Are you kidding me? That is all time.
Vince Vaughn.
4 Christmases.
Nobody can talk that fast and be that funny.
How about they're on the roof trying to set up the satellite?
Yes. That's one of my favorite parts.
That's a good one.
They go visit the dad.
So we got number 5's A Christmas Story. Number 4, Love Actually. Number 3, Elf. Number 2, 4 Christmases. And now, number 1 all-time Christmas movie for Austin Collie.
Number 1, my family and I start watching. Well, this year we started watching it before Thanksgiving, but typically we start to watch it right after Thanksgiving, and we will watch it every single day, and that is Christmas Vacation.
Yes.
I've seen it twice already myself this holiday season. In fact, on the stream, they beat you to it. They said Christmas Vacation needs to be on this list, and it's number 1.
Yeah, that's great. No, those are
There's
all
some
fun.
amazing scenes in there.
Yeah.
And they're a lot of the scenes are over the top, but we've all been in those kind of scenes.
Yeah.
We can relate to that.
Yeah.
No question. My wife and I always, anytime we say something or do something just drastic or anything like that, the line is serious, Clark?
What's the one with oh my gosh, I'm losing my mind. Where they leave the kid in New York by accident.
Home Alone.
Home Alone.
That's a good one. That could be in there.
Ooh, I totally forgot about that one, Blaine. That might take the place of Love Actually, Blaine.
Just like that, Love Actually's out.
Yep, that's out.
Okay.
It's gone.
Home Alone.
I totally forgot about Home Alone.
Yeah, because Home Alone. Yeah, Home Alone is a good one.
That's like SMU
I
coming
was
straight in.
I was
at the late
surprised that
college
Home Alone
football
wasn't on
playoff.
the list, and that's why I thought of it. I'm like, it's got to be on Austin's list. Home Alone.
You know what? Home Alone 2 was
Absolutely.
pretty good too when they went to New York.
Yeah, Macaulay Culkin. Yeah, Home Alone
That
is
was
a good
good.
one. They lead the kid home.
Hey, all right.
Yeah, and 2 is good too. That's a good sequel in New York. You're right.
Hey, a
With
bonus
the bird lady. So.
Yeah, a bonus question for you, because Puka just went over 2,000 yards yesterday. He did it in 24 games, tied for second fastest to do it with Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase. Those are a couple of names. Where's Puka going to end up? This is just year 2. Where's he going with his career in the NFL?
To the moon. I mean, I don't like it's the kid is pretty astounding. I mean, it is unbelievable. Like I'm every week I'm just in awe, and I'm thinking that maybe this week the defenses will start to learn and maybe play another guy over the top or but even then.
But why is he? People ask me this all the time. It's like, and I have some ideas, but you're better at understanding wide receivers. Why is he so dominant? What is it about Puka that makes him so special?
Well, I think he's a master of his craft, right? Like I think he's a super smart player. I think that he's in a McVay's system. He's got the relationship with the quarterback. He's got a very, very great firm understanding of the offense and what's expected of each route, right? Like I remember when I was kind of on that that second year when I was kind of on that same, maybe not quite as Puka, but kind of on that same trajectory, man. I just remember everything would slow down because I finally understood, not only what I was doing on the play, but like what everybody else was doing. Like the concept of the play and then what we were trying to get out of it, everybody else's role and how that was playing into the concept. And I remember once I started understanding that because of the quarterback that I had and the knowledge that he just continued to share, it just unlocked this different level, right? Like it was like I took off these fog goggles and now everything just seems so much clearer and so much easier, right? And then combine that with like the kid is just a freaking dog, man. Like he is just a dog. Like he's just relentless. Like every play matters, right? It's so fun to watch.
Yeah, he is special. That's hard to teach too. When we say a guy's got a dog in him, we talk about these guys that we see in the league and at BYU. When a guy has that, it's not like, hey, let's teach this guy to be a dog. You just can't teach somebody to do that. They have it or they don't, right?
Yeah. No, it's just built in them. Yeah, you don't develop that.
Yeah. Interesting stuff. He's a phenomenal.
Do you know what we used to say about Austin when he was
film.
playing? We used to say that guy is a dog.
Yeah.
And we did, because Austin had the dog in him.
And it was a nice thing to say.
And,
Fred Warner's another dog. He's playing
Fred's
with a
dog.
fractured ankle. He's
like,
a dog.
Fred's like, it's the biggest moment in the game. I'm making a play right now.
Yeah.
Austin,
how crazy is that though? Like two of the biggest names in the NFL, man, are BYU guys, and they're not. Fred and Puka. I mean, they were dudes in college, but they've taken it to another stratosphere, man, in the NFL. Like it's crazy.
You throw Taysom in there, you got three dogs who are doing it.
We have three of the biggest names and dogs in the league.
It's like three-dog night.
BYU might not have as many players as Bama in the league, but they got so many recognizable guys in the league. I mean, it's phenomenal.
Like Cal Van Noy, right? Like,
yeah.
I mean, it is. I mean, every Sunday, man, there's some BYU guys, dude, that are making massive impacts and influencing the outcome of games, which is, I mean, that's all you can ask for. Now let's get them on the phone as we go into the portal and start getting some of these guys, right? Let's Kevin Young this thing, football team.
Yeah.
Let's Kevin Young this thing and start pulling in some pro guys. Let's get Jim McMahon on the phone. Let's get Steve on the phone. Let's get Fred Warner on the phone. Tell him how great BYU is and get him here.
Yeah,
that sounds good.
Boyd Lake says, guys, how is Fred Warner playing with fractured ankle? Does Fred have a fractured ankle right now?
Yeah, he's played for most of the season with a fractured ankle.
Because he's a dog. That's why. He's a dog.
He's a dog with a fractured ankle.
Yeah. Dogs play with a fractured ankle.
So last night in the Bills game, they played in the snow and it was crazy. And they spotlighted a tackle that Fred Warner had made. And they said, here's Fred. And they highlighted him over in his linebacker spot. And the running back was running to the left side. It's about as far away from Fred as you could go. And they said, just watch Fred. And he makes this beeline and just nails the running back at full speed on the sideline. And I'm sitting there going, that would be it for me. That would separate me from this life to the next.
If you were the running back, right?
And if I was running back, and Fred it was like a missile, and I thought, man, I feel bad for whoever he's about to hit. And then he hit him.
Yeah. I think that happened the first series?
Yeah.
First or second series, very early on in the game. The amount of ground the kid covers and his angle is just, I mean, it's always on point.
Yeah, and when he decides, he has great instincts, so he doesn't have a lot of false reads. No. And then once he makes his read, he goes full speed every play.
Yeah.
And that's just so rare to have that combo. Yeah, he is phenomenal. He's so fun.
Austin, thank you for being with us. We're going to see you on game day, probably the 28th.
Yeah,
that's what we're thinking.
You're going to not go out of town on me or something. You're going to come, right? You're going to be there on the 28th.
28th of December?
Yeah.
If that's game day, we got game day.
That might be a toss-up, fellas.
Oh,
I gotta
jeez.
check the calendar.
Wait. What about if we convince Ben and the whole gang to take the show on the road?
Yeah,
we
would like to do that.
Go to the Pop-Tarts Bowl. We see the mascot in the toaster come out as a Pop-Tart, and we do it all together.
Listen.
And take in all the festivities the few days before. Yeah, absolutely. All expenses paid by BYU.
We're all in.
Yes.
We're all in.
I'm
Okay.
all in.
We got that. So, because you know how he was saying that Chase needs to negotiate?
Yeah.
We need to go negotiate so that they take us.
Fantastic idea. Love the idea. The 28th, so we'll see you in studio is probably how that's going to all shake down.
Yeah.
But hey, have a Merry Christmas. Our best to your family. And it has been and will continue to be a pleasure to have you with us on game day and all that stuff. You're good.
It's been fun, guys. I appreciate you.
Thanks, Austin.
Have
See
a
you,
great
brother.
night.
Give everybody in the
All right.
family a hug. And if I don't see you, Merry Christmas, brother.
Yep, you guys too.
That's Austin Collie, one of the best to ever play football at BYU, and some great stuff. And here's what you get with Austin Collie. You get exactly what he thinks, and then you get a good reason why. And then that's what we'll have. It's not just somebody who's going to, fire off some things just to fire them off. He'll say, here's what I think needs to change, and here's how I do it.
Yeah.
And we love that.
Well,
thank you for watching The Wise Guy.
If you like what you're watching, you can help us out by subscribing and hitting that notification button.